care about the indigestion. I need a miracle, or I need to be dead. Bellows paused, his eyes widening as a devious, desperate thought took root. Wait, if I was sick, legitimately, medically incapacitated, I'd have to appoint an acting base commander, and that person would be the one to face Ironside's wrath. Snodgrass nodded slowly. Bellows grinned, a look that, with Sterling and his cutthroats in charge, they'll turn this base into a Roman orgy within 20 minutes. Ironside will see the chaos, blame the acting commander, and destroy Sterling's career while I watch from a hospital bed with a bowl of lime jello. It's poetic. Sir, you look terribly ill already, Snodgrass lied expertly. Chapter 2. The Rise of Silas. Captain Silas Sterling was a man who viewed the war as a minor inconvenience to his primary occupation, enjoying the tropics. He was currently lounging on the deck of the Scimitar, a PT boat that looked more like a floating flea market than a weapon of war. "Skipper!" shouted Lieutenant, junior grade, Percy Pringle, a man whose clumsiness was so profound it was almost a superpower. Pringle tripped over a coil of rope, somersaulted twice, and landed perfectly on his feet. "The Commodore is dying, or at least he's making a very loud noise about it." Silas sat up, adjusting his sunglasses. "Bellows, dying. He's too mean to die, Percy. Fate wouldn't know what to do with him." Minutes later, Silas and Pringle stood in the Commodore's office. Bellows was draped over his desk like a wilted lily, groaning in a key that suggested a tragic ending. "Sterling," Bellows wheezed. "The doctors. They don't know. It could be tropical gout. It could be spontaneous combustion. I have to step down. I'm appointing you acting base commander." Silas blinked. "Me? Commodore, I'm a saltwater skipper. I belong behind a wheel, not a desk. My idea of paperwork is choosing which brand of playing cards to buy." "It's an order!" Bellows suddenly roared, then quickly returned to a pathetic whimper. "And I'm appointing Pringle here as your acting executive officer." Pringle beamed. "Oh boy, did you hear that, Skipper? I'm an exec. I'll get a bigger whistle." "Go," Bellows moaned. "Take command. And whatever you do, don't look at the sinks." As Silas and Pringle exited, Silas looked at his crew: Milo, the gambler, Tiny, the mechanic who could fix a tank with a bobby pin, and Gus, who was currently wearing a grass skirt for reasons no one dared ask. "All right, boys," Silas sighed. "We're the law now. Pringle, go handle the supply requests. Milo, check the radar. And someone, for the love of all that is holy, find those garter belts for the nurses before they start a mutiny." Within the hour, the base was a beehive of Sterling brand chaos. Pringle was on the phone, accidentally authorizing the construction of a bakery in the middle of the rifle range. Milo was trying to track a UFO on the radar that turned out to be a smudge of mustard on the screen. And in the center of it all, Silas was trying to figure out why the petty officers were using the plugged-up sinks to chill bottles of bootleg champagne. Chapter 3. The Sultan and the Scimitar. The chaos reached its zenith when a diplomatic emergency arrived. A sultan from a neighboring neutral island, Karim of Mirani, had been forced to make an emergency landing with his 3 beautiful daughters. "A sultan?" Silas asked, rubbing his temples. "On Isla del Sol? Why doesn't he go to Hawaii like a normal royal?" "He's here for protection, Skipper," Pringle explained, nearly poking his own eye out with a pen. "And the Commodore, well, he's still sick, so you have to host the royal dinner." The Sultan arrived with much fanfare, carrying himself with an air of immense dignity that Sterling's crew immediately set about dismantling. The princesses were veiled and mysterious, but the crew's eyes were already roving. "Greetings, Your Highness," Silas said, donning his best serious officer face. "Welcome to Isla del Sol. I am Acting Commander Sterling. We are here to serve you." The Sultan looked at Silas, then at Pringle, who was currently entangled in a ceremonial lay. "I am Karim. I travel with my most valuable possessions. Do not debase my daughters." "Oh, absolutely not, sir," Pringle chimed in. "Wowie, wow. I mean, we're professionals." The dinner was a disaster of international proportions. Silas had to keep the crew from hitting on the princesses, while Pringle tried to explain that peanut butter was an American delicacy. To make matters worse, the Commodore, hearing about the beautiful princesses, decided he was suddenly well enough to attend, only to find Silas and his crew had already organized a hula dancing competition in the bomb shelter to entertain the guests. "Sterling!" Bellows screamed, watching as his acting commander taught a sultan how to steer a PT boat. "What is the meaning of this? Is that a princess wearing a sailor's cap?" "She's the navigator now, sir," Silas said with a wink. Chapter Eve. The Laughing Gas and the Admiral. Just as the Sultan departed, the real threat arrived. Admiral Ironclad Ironside's plane touched down. Bellows was in a panic. Sterling's crew had turned the base into a tropical resort, and Ironside was sure to notice the lack of, well, everything military. "We have to jolly him up," Pringle suggested. Milo, the crew's resident genius of the illicit, had a plan. The skipper just got a tooth pulled. The dentist left a tank of nitrous oxide laughing gas in the infirmary. "If we accidentally vent a little into the Commodore's office while the Admiral is there, it's genius," Silas said. "If Bellows starts laughing, Ironside will think the base has high morale. And if Ironside starts laughing, well, no one gets court-martialed while they're giggling." The plan was executed with military precision, by Sterling's standards. As Ironside sat in Bellows' office, looking like a man made of frozen granite, the crew pumped the gas through the ventilation. "Commodore Bellows," Ironside rumbled, "I find your reports inconsistent." "Inconsistent." Bellows began to twitch. A giggle escaped his lips. "Inconsistent? Admiral, you're a riot. You're a regular barrel of monkeys." Ironside stared. "Monkeys? Sir, I am an admiral of the fleet." But then the gas hit him. A slow, creeping smile spread across his face, a sight so rare it was said to cause eclipses. "You know, Bellows, you have a very funny nose. It's like a little potato." "A potato!" Bellows shrieked, falling out of his chair in a fit of hysterics. "And your ears, Admiral? They're like rudders." They spent the next hour rolling on the floor, laughing at the sheer concept of the Navy. Silas and the crew watched through the window, horrified and delighted. "Mission accomplished," Silas whispered. "But we better stop before they start," promoted the alligator. Chapter 5. The Ghost of PT-13. The peace didn't last. Bellows, once the gas wore off, was more humiliated than ever. He decided to play a jinx on Sterling. He told the crew that their beloved boat, the Scimitar, was actually the cursed PT-13, a boat that had lost 3 crews to mysterious circumstances. "It's a jinxed ship, McHale," Bellows cackled. "Everyone who sails her ends up as shark bait." The crew, being superstitious sailors who wouldn't walk under a ladder even if it were made of gold, were terrified. They refused to board. "I'm a ghost!" Pringle cried, covering himself in a white sheet. "I'm already dead." "I can feel the spectral chill." Silas had to fight fire with fire, or rather, ghosts with ghosts. He organized a seance that involved hidden wires, glowing phosphorus, and Milo making eerie noises. Through a megaphone, they convinced Bellows that the ghosts of the 13th were back for their back pay. Bellows found himself surrounded by glowing figures in his bedroom. "The transfers," the ghosts moaned. "Give us the transfer papers to the mainland, or we'll haunt your gin bottle forever." Bellows, terrified and sobbing, handed over the papers. The next morning, Silas revealed the ruse, leaving Bellows with a handful of phosphorus stains and a deep hatred for the supernatural. Chapter 6. The Great Port Royal Payroll Heist. The final act of the Isla del Sol drama took place in the port of Port Royal. The base payroll, $62,000 in small, unmarked bills, had arrived. Bellows, hoping to finally catch Silas in a crime, entrusted the money to Pringle, knowing the clumsy ensign would surely lose it. And lose it he did. Pringle was mugged by a group of local crooks after being distracted by a girl with a heart-shaped birthmark on her ankle. Skip. It's